All right. Hello, everyone. Let's see what the stream looks like today. So for those of you guys that are joining, every Sunday, basically at 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, I think that's what that's called, PST. 10 a.m. in the morning, Sundays, we have a live stream every week, or at least I'm going to try to have one every week. In the past couple of weeks, we've been able to address, some of the different questions that come up every now and then for the channel. And this is somewhat of a good place to address all of those questions, as long as answering a couple of other questions that I think will be useful for a lot of you guys that are, trying to be a software developer, engineer, iOS programmer, Android developer perhaps as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start the stream right now. And it seems like people are slowly joining into the chat room. So I have a live chat box open here. And I think what I want to do is to shrink this guy to the corner a little bit. Hopefully you guys can still see the font of that. And then I will, let's see, what is this guy? Live chat, okay. So we expand this guy a little bit and try to get this little chat box going on here. I know it's a little bit more interesting if you guys can also see what everyone else is saying on the channel. Okay, so I see some of you guys are saying that the chat is offline. Okay, how many of you guys are able to see the chat and hear the audio? Just want to make sure I'm not just talking to myself here. Hello? Anyone able to see the chat? Anyone able to see the video? Okay, it's now okay. It's online now. Okay, good stuff. Okay, it seems like everything is online. The chat is going, and we have quite a few people inside of the browser here. So it shows one person watching, which obviously is not the case. Okay, so you guys are hearing the audio, hearing the video. Okay, good stuff. And we have about 28 people in the chat right now. So let me kind of restart everything here. And basically we have a chat, a live stream every Sunday in the morning, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, PST, I think that's what that's called. And today we're starting a little bit late at 10:30. Just preparing all this material for you guys. Had a bit of a long night yesterday. So that's why the show is kind of late. But anyways, we are here nonetheless to answer a lot of the questions that come up every now and then during some of the videos that are being released every week. So this is a pretty good place to address those questions, along with me trying to answer some other interesting topics that I think are useful for people that want to hear about them. Yeah, so in the chat, we have Raul right here every Sunday. So I'm trying to hold something every Sunday, which keeps me motivated to put out more videos. And I think it's working out so far. Okay, so how's everyone doing today? I know we have the Super Bowl, which is an American thing, which is today. I'm not a big football fan, so that's why I don't watch. I don't have any plans for the Super Bowl, even though a lot of people do have plans for it. Okay, you will explain why you use often collection views. Yeah, so in today's video, what we want to go over are some of the advantages of using the collection view, and I guess most importantly, why I've been using collection views over table views for most of the videos on the channel. So we're going to go over that today, as well as an algorithm that I have on the screen here. It's always interesting to find these guys. Okay, so here is an algorithm for you guys to think about if you're just sitting there listening. Maybe you want to kind of sit back and crunch your brain a little bit. So given this sentence right here, you want to implement an algorithm that finds how many times the letter S occurs inside of each one of these words. So basically, we have an S here, an S here. So that's 2, here's 3, here's 4, and then here there is a bunch of S's here, but this will just count as 1. And then there's a 5, I guess. So this algorithm right here should return 5 if you implement something called number of occurrences of some kind of character and inside of some given sentence, unlike this. Number of occurrences right here, this should return 5. So it should return 5, maybe. 5 or 6, one of those. The return value is not the important part of this algorithm. But hopefully you guys can think about this for a little bit. And at the very end of today's lesson, we will try to implement this algorithm using a couple of different techniques. The first will be the for loop technique, which is basic for loop iterations. And then we'll look at, what is it called? Higher ordered functions using Swift functional programming to figure out all this stuff. Okay. So now it looks like we have quite a few people in the channel already, 66 of you guys. All right, so we have Sandeep, Yufuk, Tarun, Yannick, Ivan, Tomas, Rajki, Liz, Narinder. We got Mike93, Wolf, Davey, Tomas, D. Wang, Sohel, and Liz again, Murat. Okay. Vignesh, Zorro, Alexander, good to see you again. Sohel, we have Eric, we have Matt, we have Mr. Download App, Tarun, Agnan, Jean, Raul, Eric Morales, Mr. Kruberlick, Sudhir, Steps 105, hello. Andre, hello Andre, good to see you again. We have another Andre, Jose, Dima, Rosario. We have Eric, we have Chingiz, we have, oh, is it Elias? Marcus, Ahmed, Jack, Oscar. And then we have Sean, all right, SMG. Okay. By the way, you guys have this $sign at the very bottom which says super chat. If you click on this and then you want to send a super chat, what that allows you to do is to donate money to the channel. And then you can donate as much money as you want. So I know some of you guys are super generous, right? And if you want to donate $500 to this channel, you can go ahead and do so. And so the advantage of this new thing called a super chat in YouTube is that at the very top, if someone donates money to the channel, their comment will be posted at the top of the chat box, and then it stays at the top for a little bit of time. I don't know when this will be available to everyone, but it should be available to some of you guys. I don't really know how this works, and this is a new YouTube feature. So obviously, if you want to donate something like $2 or $1, that'll be great for the channel. If not, that is okay too. So it looks like this character count increases as you put in more money. Okay, so in Germany it is not available. For Andre, it is available. Yeah. So, whatever. Yeah, new YouTube feature. Interesting. So the idea was that there was this support button. I think it's still there, but in the about page for each one of your YouTube channels, there's this support button that allows you to donate money, right? And I believe YouTube didn't think that the button was very successful in terms of conversion of people donating their money to these YouTube creators. So now they decided to implement this thing called a super chat. And what the super chat allows you to do is to simply donate money during a live stream. And YouTube is currently testing this out. We will see if it is a success. If not, just another one of YouTube's test features that gets lost in a black hole somewhere. Okay. So that's that. What happens when we go back? Okay. Censor chat. I guess I'll keep this up here for those of you that are interested in donating. So I guess the reason why this feature is not available inside of some of the countries is because perhaps money conversion or the way that transferring currency works might be a little bit more difficult in some countries. I think if you're in the US, this feature should be available. If you're in other countries that have a lot of payment transactions that deal with the US, it should be available as well. So I'm not surprised if, in Romania it's available. And then for Andrei Cherkov, it is not. Currency issue, a lot of different reasons why this might not be available. But whoever is the first one to donate money to the channel, their message will be placed at the very top for a certain amount of time. I don't really know how all this stuff works yet, but let's see who's the first one to donate money today. Yeah, try not to all donate at once. Anyways, enough about this money thing. Let us go ahead and sort of begin today with the simulator I have on the right side. And so UITableView versus UICollectionView. I believe I spelled UICollectionView wrong. And the reason for me choosing UICollectionView over UITableView is sort of what I want to go over today. So I'm going to click on the very first row. Why do I prefer UICollectionView over UITableView? And let me just read off what I have typed out. Makes it a little bit easier. In a nutshell, it's because UICollectionView can do everything that a UITableView can do, but much, much more. So all you guys know that UICollectionView is a list. UITableView is also a list. So they basically do the same thing, right? UICollectionView has a lot more options that make it much, much more flexible. Oh man, look at this. We have, okay. So I don't really know what's going on here, but we have Tomas, you're gonna have to tell me how to pronounce that last name, but Tomas Urquijo? Hope I'm not butchering your name too much. But yeah, we have MX20. I don't really know what MX is. Is that like a is that a currency that I'm not aware of? I don't know what MX means. But yeah, thanks for the little donation there. It definitely helps. And we have Sean Sneed with a $2 donation. Great stuff. Yeah, definitely thanks for everything that you guys want to give to the channel. I know not everyone has a lot to give, so whatever you want to do to support the channel will help out. All right, so if this is Mexican pesos, then 20 pesos, I don't know what that comes out to be. Anyways, back to the chat here. So again, UICollectionView has a lot of advantages over UITableView. Now let's say this is kind of the example I came up with. If you're trying to buy a computer, right, and a lot of us have this issue, if you're trying to decide between something like the Mac Pro, which is that desktop cylinder trash can thing, then you have the option of buying a laptop. What is the correct purchase for you, or how do you decide which one to buy? And so for me, the advantage is, or most of the time, I'll look at the laptop and I will purchase the laptop 10 out of 10 times probably. And the reason is because while they both do the same thing, right? I can develop apps on the Mac Pro, I can develop apps on the laptop. But the huge thing about, or the huge pro of the laptop is I can bring it anywhere I want because it's portable, obviously. And it comes with a screen. And the screen, I don't have to purchase an external screen for the Mac Pro. And there's all different types of advantages. All right, thank you, Henry, for the $5 purchase. Anyways, I'm trying to just address everyone that's testing out the super chat feature. And so I'm obviously going to buy the laptop because it comes with a huge amount of pros and advantages to it. And then, what else did I want to say? So yeah, it's obvious for me which thing I want to purchase. And so the same reasoning applies for the UICollectionView. I can do everything that I want with the UICollectionView that a UITableView allows me to do. So obviously I'm going to choose the UICollectionView because it is much more robust in terms of layout features and other things like animation, which I'll go through a little bit later. And yeah, the final thing about this is that UICollectionView, the way to set it up with cell registration and then dequeuing your cells, specifying the size, the height, it's all pretty much exactly the same as UITableView. So that's kind of why I choose UICollectionView. There's really nothing that I gain from using just a UITableView, except for one important thing, which I'll go over in a little bit. Okay, so let's move back to the main list view. All right. Yeah, so Henry Lee, thank you once again. Very, very useful for all of what you guys do to support the channel. Yeah, it definitely goes a long way. I'm still trying to figure out how much 20 Mexican pesos, how much money that is. All right, so we have one question. What about row actions? How do you handle them in a collection view? I'm not exactly sure what row actions mean. Every time you want to handle the clicking of a row, you would override the did select item at either index path or did select item at or did select row. The implementation for both of those are exactly the same for table view and UI collection view. So there's really no difference in the implementation. There's a very, very good blog article on this topic written by some guy. I didn't have the time to do the research on where that link is, but I'll try to link it in the description later on. Yeah. Okay, so 20 pesos is 0.982 US dollars. I think that will roughly round out to $1, which is nice. Which is nice. Yeah, so the other advantage is that you have this swiping behavior in the UITableView cell, which for the most part, it's a nice feature to have, but I have not actually used that in many production applications at all. So it's a nice feature, right? You swipe the cell to the left, has that delete button, you hit it, and then you handle some kind of action. Try to look for that feature being implemented in the apps that you have, or the apps that you have on your phone. You'll notice that not a lot of the apps implement that functionality. Okay, So we have 500 Mexican pesos by Tomas. Uh, that's so if $20. Let me do the conversion here. If $20 is $1, then 500 Mexican dollars is 5 times 5, which is roughly $25. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, so we have 24.554. Okay, so it seems like this live stream is turning into conversion, currency conversion, which is always interesting because math and money is an interesting topic when you combine them together. Yeah, well, you guys are mostly computer science people, so math is something that we all have in common as a common interest, which is nice. You know, every time I'm talking to someone that's not a programmer, it's most of the time they're not interested in math and doing calculations in their head because they think it's difficult. But when you're in a group of computer scientists and programmers and math people, you can discuss math and all these algorithms without the fear of someone saying, "Oh, you're super boring because, you know, I don't want to talk about math because I don't know math." Everyone here loves to just talk about technical, computer geeky stuff, and that's why I like the community here. It's good to have like-minded people so you can share common interests. Okay, Narinder Singh, I believe that's how you pronounce that. Is this a? Okay. This is a. I don't even. I don't even know if I should say this. So we have Singh. I'm gonna assume that's an Indian last name. Narinder sounds. Yeah. So I'm gonna try not to offend anyone here, but I guess I'll just make an assumption here. Can someone tell me what this sign is? Is that a rupee? Is that an Indian rupee? Okay, so that is an Indian rupee. You know what? Someone should tell YouTube that a lot of these channels, right? Because YouTube is an international thing, they should convert these currencies for the people that don't know what the conversion rate is and display it up here. And they should probably display it in US dollars because, you know, America, USA. Because everyone should follow American standards, obviously, right? Okay. Let me pick out a few questions that's interesting here. We have Noah Gomez. Can you answer the guy who donated 500 Mexican pesos question? Right. So we have the nested view question. Sorry, I kind of neglected this thing. So nesting more and more views, does this affect the app's performance? Good question. So nesting more and more views. It really depends on what you're doing with the nesting. If you look at the App Store app that I have built out, I really wish I can show you what the app looks like. But basically, the App Store has this vertical list of horizontal rows, right? And if you look at that, there's a lot of nesting going on. First, there's the vertical overall list, and then nested inside of each one of these rows are these collection views that you can swipe left and right. So there's 2 layers of nesting right there. And inside of each one of these cells, inside of the horizontal collection view, you have a couple of views that represent what the app is and also the name of the label and the price perhaps. So 1, 2, and then 3 is how the nesting looks like. And the way that it appears to perform really, really smoothly is because there's a scroll view. There's a scroll view, which is the UITableView. And then there are a bunch of cells that are being repeated. So basically, every cell that you have that you're scrolling up and down is being reused every time you see a new cell. So there's not a lot of inefficiencies, right? And because of the optimizations of UITableView and UICollectionView, everything is being reused every time you see something on the screen. And that's why everything is performing really, really well. If you don't use UICollectionView, or if you don't use something that's smart, like these table views and collection views, your app is going to perform really slowly because the memory implications of creating all of these new views is going to eat up the memory on your device, and then the performance is going to be really, really slow. So the main overall point of this whole thing is to use UICollectionView and use UITableView if you have something that can be reused in your view. So try not to use UIScrollView and try not to draw your views manually with coordinates. That will really, really help your app. Okay, so that's kind of my take on it. Okay, what do we have here? Okay, so let's see. Okay, let me just go ahead and move on to the second row of this table view right here. So advantages of UICollectionView. And some of you guys already know what the advantages are, but I'm gonna go ahead and read off this list anyways. So let's see if I can shrink my head a little bit, perhaps move it over. All right. So the software that I'm using to broadcast all of this is called Open Broadcast Software. It's called OBS, and it allows you to kind of drag everything onto the screen, have all your windows in one place. Perhaps I'll do a video on how to do this live stream stuff a little bit later on. Anyways, okay. So what are the advantages of UICollectionView? The biggest advantage for why I use a collection view is the ability to scroll horizontally. So in a lot of these, perhaps the App Store app, we have horizontal scroll. In the walkthrough, Audible, right? The Audible app where you have the walkthrough, I just use a UICollectionView to page through the horizontal pages inside of each one of those walkthrough screens. So super easy. This allows you to do a lot of stuff that you often find on the Apple App Store. And then the second advantage is that when you're designing your apps and then you have multiple rows or multiple columns in your rows, you'll find that if you use a UITableView, you have to apply some kind of hack to put two things inside of one row. And then that hack is hard to maintain because you have your array of items and then you start messing with the index and it gets really, really, the code gets really messy. So if you want to support multiple columns, you will have an easier time using UICollectionView. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is the complex layout that UICollectionView supports. So by default, UICollectionView uses something called UICollectionView flow layout. And this gives you pretty much the flow of left and right like that, or up and down like this on a horizontal scroll direction. If you want to implement something that looks like the Pinterest app where you have this thing right here, and then this long thing right here, and this thing down here, and then this smaller thing here, everything is kind of placed on top of each other like the Tetris game where you just have small pieces and long pieces and smaller, longer, bigger, shorter, fatter. All of these pieces flow on top of each other. And the way you do that is to use UICollectionView flow layout. And basically you just calculate where things are placed inside of your screen. And it makes it a lot easier to have a dynamic layout. If you try to do this using UITableView, you pretty much can't do it. It's impossible to specify where things appear on your list. Okay, and the reason why you would use this list instead of a scroll view is because you're reusing your cells inside of your collection view. Okay, next thing is can more easily implement drag and drop functionality. So if you have a bunch of files, like some kind of grid of files, you can implement something like dragging this icon down here and then like moving the thing up here. And you can manipulate what's on the screen. If you're trying to use a table view to implement a grid to do all this, obviously you can't do that. So this list kind of goes on and on. I don't know how much I want to read. Let's see. It supports custom animation for cells based on layout parameters such as coordinates. Okay, that's what that says. So yeah, animating cells that are coming in based on certain locations of the grid. You can't do that in UITableView, but you can do that in UICollectionView. So let's see, headers and footers have an option of being anchored on the top and bottom of each section. So let me show the Twitter app again. This guy right here, can I get you to show up? Okay. So I think because I'm live streaming, I don't have these icons showing up on the left side. So basically, this is a UI collection view, right? And the thing is, at the very top, you have this who to follow header, and then you have this show me more footer at the bottom. If you try to implement this using a UI table view, you cannot get this list. Well, I don't think you can get this list so that the header and the show me more, they don't, you see how they don't anchor themselves up to the very top? Like the moment you scroll, the header scrolls with it like that. And this is how the Twitter application is designed. So basically they don't want this header to be snapped on top. And on a table view, the header is stuck to the very top of the screen until you scroll to the next section of the table view. And there's really no way to turn that option off. You can implement some kind of hack where you have some kind of view at the very top, or like another section. This perhaps can be your table views very first section with a cell up here, and that could work, but it's a bit of a hack. And so using UI collection view, you can implement a section like this very, very easily. If you guys watch the series, the Twitter series, you can see how it's done. It's like super simple. Okay, moving on. Cells don't automatically come with an annoying separator view. So by default, UI collection or UI table view cell has that horizontal line at the very bottom. I think maybe perhaps 70% to 80% of the apps that I've built in production, we don't need that horizontal line. So often I found that if I use a collection view, I don't have to include that line of code that disables that horizontal line. I think in the very beginning when you're designing apps, having that horizontal separator between each one of your cells seems like it's helpful. But then once you start getting into professional jobs and complicated designs, that horizontal row almost always disappears because no one really wants that horizontal line. Yeah, so what else do we have here is a very, very long list, right? Okay, let's move on to this one. Don't have to set an empty footer view to remove empty cell illusion at the end of the list. So this is another problem with UITableView. And when you're constructing a list using a UITableView, you notice that you have all of these horizontal lines at the bottom. Even though you don't have, perhaps you have one thing in your list, you have a bunch of horizontal separator lines showing up. And the easy way to remove the empty lines is to set an empty footer view. It just gets rid of those lines. And that's pretty annoying because that is just one extra line of code that you don't need. So using a UI collection view, you don't render out those lines just by default. So I like not having to do that. And then the advantages of UI collection view are endless, but these are the major ones for me. I have a ton of other things that I can list out, but I think this is just enough. All right, long list. Okay, so I hope some of you guys are taking a look at this algorithm here and trying to figure out how to implement it. And I'll show you guys two ways of doing it. First is somewhat easy, and second one is a little bit trickier. Okay, back to the stream. We have 104 viewers, YouTube viewers, which is the record for the live stream today, or of all time. So let me see, what else do we have here? Narenja Singh is an Indian name. Yeah. So at this company that I worked for called App Dynamics, we had a lot of people from like Mumbai and other cities, other provinces of India, and so yeah, a lot of these names I see like Patel and what do we have? Like Ali, Gomez. Yeah. So uh, Indian folks are like one of the nicest people. Just like super nice and very, very easy to get along with. Okay, we have Mr. Example. Can we maybe collaborate anytime in the future on an app or tutorial? Perhaps a tutorial if you are good at recording videos, then maybe, yeah. Uh, yeah, so a lot of you guys know that, or from what you see on the channel, right? The videos that I record sort of have a certain style to it, and recording them takes a certain amount of, what should I call it? Maybe not expertise, but the efficiency in which I code while recording is something that I try to get better and better at with each video. And a lot of times I watch a lot of other YouTube videos and their tutorials as well, just to see what they're doing well and how I can learn from them. And something that I find to be a little distracting is that most of the YouTube videos, there's a couple of things, right? I want to show myself on the screen, and I also want to show the simulator, and I also want to show the Xcode editor. I think having the combination of these three things makes the viewing experience just a little bit better and makes it a little bit more entertaining to watch, I think. So also, you'll notice that a lot of the videos that I shoot are mostly just one take, right? I mean, it takes me a couple of times to shoot it, but when I can just do it all in just one shot, I think it helps the you get a sense of what I'm trying to do. And if you don't cut the video a bunch of times, I feel like when you're watching it, you can get the feel for what the developer is trying to do as they type out the code. And this is a reflection of what the professional industry looks like. When you have your very first job and you're sitting down as a junior developer, the senior guy is usually sitting at his desk, and you move a chair over and you sit down right next to the senior developer, which is your boss, and he will walk you through what the application does for the company. And you have to sit next to him for like, I don't know, a week or maybe a couple of months. And then you do something called pair programming, where you watch what the guy does and you have to learn what he's doing. So the theme, the overall theme for the channel is I am serving as sort of the more knowledgeable person. And if you're just sitting here watching me do what I do, you can pick up on the thought processes of what I'm trying to do. And I think this is super helpful for people that are just getting into the industry, don't exactly know how a more professional person would write out a piece of code. I think it's helpful. So that's sort of what I have to say about that. But there's definitely more and more things that I can do to improve these tutorials. I think the big thing for me right now is to get as much content out there as possible so that you guys can be entertained. Okay. So any more questions from the chat here? We have 111. I guess the Super Bowl is not important for a lot of you guys. It's definitely not something that I'm a fan of. Okay, back to the questions. Hey, Septronic, I really like your series on Firebase messaging. How would you go about adding notification and background message receiving to that? So this is like the 100th time that someone has asked this question. If you do some Google searching on how to implement push notifications for your app, you'll find this article done by Apple, I think. Not Apple, but the Firebase team, and they kind of mentioned how you would do this using a third server, no, an external service. So you would host some kind of Node.js server to monitor your nodes and then push notifications to APNS, and then you'll get the push onto your devices. Okay. Has the live chat, is live chat still going on? I feel like it's died off for some reason. Okay. Yeah, I can't really see what's going on in the chat anymore, unfortunately. So let me see what's happening here. So I'm gonna close out of the chat and see what's going on. Yeah, the live streaming is a little strange every now and then. Okay. Okay, pop out chat. Okay. And I think we're back. Let's see here. Yeah. Okay, chat is back. Okay, so hopefully you guys saw me rambling on a little bit. Oh, goodness. We have a lot of questions here that I didn't get to. Okay. Where did we leave off? Based on performance, which is better, UITableView or CollectionView? They both use the exact same type of algorithm to implement a scroll view, so you won't be able to tell the difference if you're just scrolling up and down. You can do some benchmarks, but the difference is insignificant. That's what I have looking for. Can you make a tutorial towards social media GPS user notification frameworks? Maybe later. Let's see. Could you please say a couple words in the end about plans for next video series? Yeah. I think you guys probably saw the Spotify app, right? That I showed you guys last time. Okay. If I wanted to implement a tab view, where every view inside of it be navigable, would each tab switch hold a different navigation view controller with a different root view? So for UITab bar controller, each one of those tab bars should hold a UI navigation controller as the view. So I think that's what you have implemented. So it looks correct. You import UI kits with import UI kit at the top of your file. Okay. Let's see. I have another question. For Fawad, how are you? Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I went to the gym yesterday, so today I'm a little bit sore, but had some pretty good sleep. Let's see, we have Bryce Chan from Hong Kong. Turn up this guy again. See how much support we get here. Let's go for 20. What library framework you use when working with OAuth 2.0? I don't really use OAuth through iOS like that so much. Usually when you want to perform OAuth, the thing that you're authenticating against, they provide their own login authorization library kit, which makes it easier to implement. Okay. So I think I'm getting to the point where there's a little bit too many different things going on in the chat. Can't really manage this stuff. Yeah, if you want your question to be answered, make sure to pin it at the very top using this super chat guy. Okay, can you create a tutorial to use UITextView field in a cell? I think for the most part that's pretty easy, right? How long does it typically take you to make a simple app? It doesn't take a whole lot using the LBTA components package, and it makes it really easy because most of the apps that you make are something of a list view. And if you're trying to use a list, you just take a couple of lines in data source controller and you should be good to go. Okay, moving on to the next little bit of a topic here. Let's see, where are we here? No, I want to go here. Let's see, drag you over. Okay, so the major disadvantage to using a UI collection view has to do with the auto sizing of your cells. If you want to implement auto sizing, most of the time I find that I don't always need auto sizing for my cells, so it's not really that much of a problem. But anyways, achieving the auto sizing rows for UI collection view is more difficult to implement if you do need this functionality. This is a tricky topic and involves some tricky calculations that I still do not really understand. So I've done it before. It takes a lot of different tries and like trial and error before you can get the auto sizing to work correctly. And UITableView is much simpler because all you have to do is return this thing called UITableView automatic dimension for the height of your row instead of each one of your cells. So this is what I would call the major disadvantage to using a UI collection view. And so the way I overcome this issue is I just manually calculate the size of everything that I need to fit into the UI collection view cell row. And that usually does the trick for me. Like, I don't need anything beyond that. So that's how I would handle that use case. Okay, so back to the chat here. What do we have going on? So what are your choices for back-end database for my app? So that's a question that gets asked quite a few times as well. And the idea is if you don't know how to build out a backend, if you don't have experience in writing a server-side backend using something like Node.js or PHP, I use Google Golang. You can use Java as well if you know how to operate things like servlets. So there's a lot of options out there to build out your own like cloud server. And if you don't know how to do any of that, you would use something like Firebase or Parse. And the reason why you would use Firebase over Parse is you get the support of all your Google apps. You can monitor your user retention, user engagement, user logins. There's now crash reporting directly supported by Firebase. And then you can use Firebase Cloud Messaging, or is that what it's called now? FCM or GCM, Google Cloud Messaging. So all this comes kind of out of the box if you integrate Firebase. So you get a lot of different advantages there. Yeah. And also Firebase is relatively cheap. I haven't really seen the pricing for a production application, but I think it's relatively cheap. It gets really expensive when you have to support or when you have to host the Firebase storage images. So if you want to use S3, which is what I use for my website, I pay about like $6 to host the images on my website each month. So the amount of data that I'm transferring out of the Amazon S3 services is about $6-7. Using Firebase storage to store all of your media files, I think will be a little bit more expensive, but even then it shouldn't matter for you guys. Like my website gets about 70 to 100,000 views a month right now, and that takes about $8 to host everything. or host the media for the website. Okay. Be interesting to do backend stuff using Swift. Yeah, so there's also this Vapor framework for Swift. If you want to use Swift to build out your backend service, you can use something called Vapor that does a good job. Okay. So moving on to the very last section of the simulator app, we have LBTA components built on top of UICollectionView controller. And so because the production applications that I build, I pretty much use something very similar to LBTA components, data source controller. This framework is just built on top of UICollectionView controller. And because of this setup, I automatically just use UICollectionView controller for my tutorials. My fingers are they're just really used to typing out UICollectionView cell. And then for the most part, you don't need to know that the data source controller is built on top of CollectionView. Some of the stuff, it's already abstracted away so that you shouldn't have to worry about what is the underlying implementation. So setting up a list using LBTA components takes only a couple of seconds, which is much faster than creating a storyboard file and dragging a bunch of things onto the screen. So I use this approach, and it's like really, really easy to build out your apps. This is why it only takes half an hour to get up something that looks decent, for me at least. Obviously, if you've been doing this for a couple of years, you have your own shortcuts. So using this is my shortcut to get something out really, really quickly. Okay. So how long have we been streaming? Roughly 50 minutes already. So let's, okay, we have Wilson right here. Why don't you make your own podcast? I've been thinking about or considering releasing a podcast, and I am kind of on the fence on whether or not this is a worthwhile investment. I think it'll be interesting. Definitely interesting because I think producing videos, while it's a good medium for people to consume, sometimes producing videos is a little bit stressful because you have to be in front of the camera, and sometimes if you are not in the mood to be in front of the camera, it might be helpful to just produce a podcast where you can just speak into a microphone. So if I wanted to perhaps podcast on this mic right here, which I already have, this is called a Blue Yeti. The audio coming out of this guy is just a lot superior compared to the lapel mic. And yeah, so doing the podcast is something that I'm considering. I already have the equipment to do so, and hosting the podcast somewhere is not difficult either. So we'll see what the year of 2017 has to bring for us. Okay, we have Jeremy Connolly. Check out Rob Percival's course on Udemy. I found an online coupon to make it $10, tons of apps, exercises, including a Flappy Bird clone with Sprite. Yeah, if you're interested in learning from someone else, such as Rob Percival, I think he's one of the better options out there. I haven't taken any of his courses. I've seen a couple of his videos, and seems like a good guy. Seems like he's able to explain his topics concisely and clearly. Probably does a better job at it than I do. Thanks. I'll do my research on that. So that you can interview Chris Leitner. Yeah. So I don't know if any of you guys listened to that interview done by the guy. Is it something Swift? This is a podcast with this guy that interviewed Chris. I don't even know how he got Chris on his podcast as a guest, but he had a couple of interesting things to say about how he got started in programming, why he's in the compiler division, or why he worked on LLVM, and then sort of what his hobbies are, like collecting cards or something. and why he found programming to be interesting. Okay, hello from Northern Europe, Alexei, Muragov. Hello to you. What do you think about reactive programming in Swift? It gives me a strong reaction. So reactive programming such as, well, I don't even know what it's called, React.js or React Native. I don't think that's reactive programming. We have MVVM, which is more considered reactive, I guess. There are some pieces of the production apps that I build that are reactive. So I think it's a good practice to implement some of these different approaches to building UI programs that are easier to maintain. And the whole thing about all these frameworks is to make your program easy to maintain in the future. MVVM does a pretty decent job at introducing new fundamental concepts to programming. Okay, where are we now? Can you please give some guidance on the method to place input accessory view using iOS 9 constraints? So for the most part, the input accessory view thing, the thing that shows up your keyboard input at the bottom, you can't really mess with that using constraints. So don't even try to affect the rendering of the input accessory view. It's pretty difficult to modify if you're using that. The approach is to instead use your own separate view at the bottom and don't use input accessory view if you need to modify or to customize that view. Okay, which in your opinion is harder building, Android apps or iOS apps? That's interesting. I don't think there is really a difference in difficulty when it comes to building out iOS apps versus Android apps. The major difference is for Android apps, you have a bunch of different devices. And so there's the obvious argument that fragmentation inside of the Android world causes the development process to be a little bit more difficult, but I don't really find that to be true. For the most part, you're developing on a device that is shaped like this somehow, and then most of the things that you build are supported by a lot of the devices. So obviously don't try to build on the bleeding edge of Android, because you'll find that most devices don't support the latest features. So yeah, you just have to take into consideration what you're building. For the most part, they're both just as easy and just as hard at the same time. Okay, so we have Dragos. Are you planning to make an app from start to App Store? That would be nice. I don't really know if I want to go down that route because it takes a long time to build something like that. And as you can see, most of the apps that I have on the channel, they're kind of clones and copies of things that are already out there. I'm trying to build out these clones because they are very, very easy to show, the components that you have available to you in iOS or UIKit. And a lot of us already know how to use these very, very famous, popular applications. And when you have this context of how the app works already, I don't have to waste a lot of time on explaining how this application, the behavior of it, and what's available. For the most part, we already know exactly what the app does. That's kind of why I take this, clone this app approach. Makes it a little bit easier. Okay, check out Uber/reanimation tutorial on Ray Wonderlink. Just did it today and it's pretty sick. Only takes 15 minutes to set up. Yeah, make sure to go check out raywonderlink.com. It's a super helpful website. I think most of you guys are aware of it. Okay. So what do you think of freelance iOS development? Yeah, it's interesting. It's difficult to find a lot of good work in that field, I find. So anyhow, I want to go ahead and go over this algorithm for you guys. So I haven't done a lot of live coding before, but I think doing all these videos kind of prepare me for this exercise. So let me go over the premise first, and then we'll try to implement some kind of algorithm to get the implementation correct. So basically, the question is, given some kind of sentence right here, which is just a string, I think we can use a let here instead. This string right here, which is a sentence, you want to implement this function to find how many times a letter appears inside of one of these words. And for example, what is this guy complaining about? For example, you have the letter S occurring in this word right here. So you would count this as 1. You count this as another one. So that's 2, 3, the S here. And this entire thing counts as 1. So you have S occurring multiple times in this word is what we would call it. And so that's another 1. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 perhaps. So maybe 6. So basically, we're going to implement this algorithm inside of here. Okay, so how would I go about doing this implementation using the traditional for loop iteration? So let's see what this looks like, and hopefully I won't make any huge mistakes today. Okay, so the first thing I would do to attempt solving this is to break everything into just a simple array of words for now. So let's say this right here, words equals sentence. So this is this incoming sentence here, and we'll just say components separated by string. And this will be this empty space string right here, which gives you the entire word right there. If you just print out words right now, you get at the very bottom console down here, you get every word separated by that space. And so that's how you would get your words array. Right, so let's say, for example, for word in words, and we just print out word right here. We get a vertical printing out of each one of these words like that. So that's how this works. Very, very simple and easy for loop that I think most of us can do. And so I am now going to test for the character of S inside of each one of these words. Let's say if word dot contains this character of S, and we will say print out perhaps word. Okay, and this is going to print out each word that contains the letter S, which is a lot more than 5. So that is what we have. Yeah, so that's kind of how this algorithm works. Now to gather the count for each one of these words, it's pretty simple as well. And let's say let count equals 0, and you'll notice that the let is incorrect a little bit later on. You basically want to say count plus plus if you still have plus plus available to you, but we don't have plus plus inside of Swift. I don't think we do, so I'm going to change this to var because we need to modify this count. Let constant doesn't really let us do that. And we have this count guy right here. You click on this, it tells you to do plus equal 1 instead. So there's this large argument on whether or not plus equal is better than plus plus. I guess it is. Okay, so let's get rid of the printing of the word and return the count guy. So count is returned right here, and then we get 10 roughly. Okay, so we have 10 words in this entire sentence that has a letter S in it. Okay, so now let's go over a different style of implementing this, which is a lot easier if you kind of know how to do it. So I guess we still need words right here. So I still need my words array. And the question is now, how do I gain this count here? So I'm going to say var count equals 0. And now what can I do? I can say for, let's see, how do I want to do this? where is dot map? No. For each, I think. And let's say, how do I want to do this? If $0 that contains that, let's see, count plus equal 1. Can I do that? Let's see. This is not how you do it. Count contains character, I guess. That. Turn count. Does that work? Haven't done this in a while. Okay, so how many braces do I need here? That ends that, that ends that, and that ends that. Okay, so that gives us the 10. And so this is how you would use a for each inside of Swift. So the one thing I really wanted to do was to use a reduce function. So I think I've already forgot how to use a reduce. So let's see. How do we use a reduce? Yeah, there it is. So I guess we'll start off with the initial value of 0. And then here we will say $1 contains character 0. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So let me just try to see. So I think you have this strange, I think we have, so $1 contains the character guy. This, if it contains the character, we just say 0 and 1. So we do this, and then we can get rid of this right here. And let's just say sentence, components separated by string of this space guy, and return this thing right here. Okay, does that work? No, this is $0. Is that? Yeah, because this is actually the sum of everything. So why does this give me 1 instead? It contains the character 0 plus 1. Yeah, $0 plus 1. So this gives me the sum plus 1. Otherwise, return $0. So that gives me the 10. Okay. Yes. So this is the reduce function. The way you can think about this is that you start off with the value of 0, right? And as you're looping through each one of these words inside of that sentence right there, if you meet this condition of $1, which represents this $1 represents the word that you're iterating over, and if this contains the character of whatever you pass inside of the method, you add a 1 to the 0. So that's how that starts off. And then if you're not containing the character, you just have the sum kind of, you kind of keep track of the sum every time you loop through this reduce function. And basically you just add a 1 to every time your character is, a character appears inside of each one of your words. So this is the approach that you would use to solve this algorithm if you wanted to use something called the higher order functionality of Swift instead, which means that you can avoid this entire loop right here. You don't need this count variable, and then you don't need to specify this, which is, I guess, this right here. So this one line of code can implement the entire thing, which is pretty useful to know if you want to learn how to code in Swift. If we pass in the character of perhaps A, I think this appears more often. Let's see, we have 8. We have 8 right here. So A only appears 8 times in each one of these words. So yeah. Okay, back to these questions here. Wondering what shortcuts in Xcode I use. So I don't use a lot of shortcuts. I get this question a lot. It seems like sometimes I use a lot of shortcuts, but I don't use much. I mean, I use tab a lot. That seems like all I use. How about doing tutorials on in-app purchases? There's a really good one on raywonderlick.com. I mean, I think that's a good tutorial to follow. You need to increment the previous sum. Yep. Let's collaborate. Extra gadgets. Yeah, for those of you guys that want to find help, I guess in terms of someone that you can code with, someone that you can work with, go ahead and reach out to the people inside of this chat and inside of this channel. You'll find a lot of these programmers that you meet are really, really good. Okay, and the Pats, of course. I don't even know who's playing in the Super Bowl today. 是谓正, will you consider to show us how our backends are built for iOS apps, how backends are built in those commercial apps, loading and refreshing large amount of contents to shopping app daily? Yeah. So backends are incredibly complex, especially the ones that track how many things are being purchased, how your users are interacting with your website, your app, and to keep track of what that loop is. And then trying to optimize, for example, optimize the amount of sales that each one of your products gets, determining which sales of the day are performing the best. And then the next day you need to release another list of products, and you got to figure out which ones are worth highlighting at the very top of the list. So doing all that involves a very, very complicated server and also a complicated database to support sort of the machine learning that is required for you to build out a smart e-commerce company website. And if you're something like Amazon, right, you log on to Amazon.com, they have a history of everything that you've browsed, everything that you've purchased, just everything that you're interested in. So they keep track of everything that you do. So one of the huge disadvantages to Firebase is that you don't have the ability to crunch out all of this information on the fly. And that's where you have to build out a proper server, and that's when it's time to kind of grow in terms of database and backend technologies. Yeah. So it's Eric J. We have, what are other languages you program the most? That's a good question. So right now I do a lot of Google Go for my backend, and I use HTML, JavaScript for the website. And then Swift for the most part for iOS apps. When I get back into Android development, I'll use Java again, or perhaps Kotlin, which is something that's new. And then I'll try to perhaps learn Node.js a little bit better to kind of show you guys how to work Node.js. Maybe I'll do something like PHP for Golang, or PHP for Laravel. Laravel seems to be a new pattern. I don't know if it's new, but it's like something that's super popular right now. What IDE do I use for Golang? I pretty much use IntelliJ for anything I'm doing that's not Xcode related. So I use IntelliJ with a Google Golang plugin that you can find for free. But it does take the professional license for IntelliJ, which costs like $200. So that's what I have to pay to get everything to work correctly. I think you can use a Sublime or an or an Atom package for Google Go. And that should help you guys out in terms of figuring out what to use for a server backend language. Interview questions about iOS jobs. Yeah. The thing about iOS jobs is that when you're inside of the interview room, they don't really ask you the technical exercise questions don't really have to deal with iOS at all. So they're going to ask you like how to reverse a linked list in the most efficient way. This other interesting question I got from my friend yesterday was how to rotate an image pixel by pixel. So like you rotate the image like that, 90 degrees. How would you do that? There are other questions like, let's see, what else is there? Perhaps the how many instructions to feed into the processor if you wanted to calculate some kind of other mathematical calculation. So a lot of this stuff is just based on how much you can crank out inside of 1 hour. And it's interesting sometimes if you can pass those tests. If you can't, it's okay too. It doesn't really mean that you can't program well. It just means that you can't answer that algorithm question correctly. And then if you purchase that really, really thick book that goes through almost every one of those popular interview questions, every one of those algorithms, you can do a pretty good job at it. So yeah, I don't really know what else to say about interview questions other than it's something that gauges how well you can crank out algorithms. In terms of using them in the real world, I don't think it's used at all in terms of programming. Well, I guess I'll take that back. Being able to program very efficient algorithms is used a lot, and being able to crank out those interview questions will determine whether or not you have or you pay attention to a lot of the detail going into the programs that you write. So that's why those interview questions are super important. And at a lot of companies that, like a lot of startups, you don't need to know all that stuff. You don't need to write the most efficient algorithm for your startup company. So you'll find some place that you'll land in that you'll be successful in. So that's kind of how the job experience and the job searching works. You just have to find the right fit for your skill set. Okay, we have Tomas here. Just for knowing, to have experience in server installing, load balancing, CDN, or such things. So I don't know exactly what the question is, but server installing, everyone nowadays, we use the AWS EC2 services for loading up servers. I personally use Heroku, which they use EC2 services to load up servers. Load balancing. So the website that I run right now, it doesn't have enough traffic to deem, or is it to, I guess, load balancing is something that I'm not worrying about right now. CDN is also something that is interesting. Most of the assets that I use, they're served directly from AWS, and I think it doesn't have CDN. I didn't turn on the CDN feature for S3, and that's something that I have to learn how to do. For the most part, I think the website serves pretty fast. I can't tell how fast the assets are being loaded for you guys are browsing the website from outside of the US, but I think it should be okay. The thing that I do monitor a lot on the website is the response time of each one of my request calls coming in. And right now, the response for the website is super fast at about 70 milliseconds. So 70 milliseconds is pretty good, considering the traffic coming from all around the world. And the website, I'm always monitoring how fast the response is. And if it goes over, like, let's say 150 milliseconds, that's when I have to worry about the code not being performant. And the most important part about server response time is that your calls reaching out to the database, that is what takes the longest time. If you want to increase or decrease the response time, there's a lot of caching involved with what's being fetched and what's already being stored on the server. It's very interesting. I think in terms of what piques my interest, the server side of everything is more interesting than building out the iPhone and client. But, you know, that's something that you'll have to get used to as you learn how servers work. Okay, we have 4月网. I made a backend server to process all my apps requests using Node.js, thinking to deploy it on Heroku or EC2. Any ideas? So I will go ahead and deploy it on Heroku as your first attempt. And Heroku is $7 for a server that's pretty decent. For EC2, you have to set up a lot of things like which ports to open, how to set up the Node.js package on that machine that you have to purchase, and you have to load up all of this configuration, and you have to decide when to deploy the application as well. So you don't need to worry about much of this if you launch on Heroku. All you do is you say git push Heroku master, the configuration or the new files hit your Heroku configuration box, loads up the new files, and everything is done for you. So I highly recommend using Heroku first, and then when you need to push out more servers, and if you have different configurations, you might have to go to EC2. So always go with the easier approach is how I try to build out my apps. If I try to do everything the most efficient in the beginning, I'll never get anything done. Yeah, to everyone who's interested in Vapor, Ray Wunderlich has a pretty awesome series of video tutorials about working with Vapor. Vapor is interesting, and it'll teach you about how to handle requests, how to process JSON, how to respond using JSON. So a lot of useful stuff. The thing about iOS programming is that something that separates you from someone else that's trying to become or trying to get an iOS job is that if you know how to write out your own API server, you are already much further along than someone that doesn't know how to write their own API server. So if you have the opportunity to learn how to build your own server, you are going to be in a much better place to get that iOS job. The most important part about server building is you need to know how to handle things like a GET request, a POST request, a JSON request, what the difference, or not a JSON request, but a delete request or something, and a put request. So what are the differences between all of these requests? And right, so a GET, a POST, a delete, a put, and then you also have to attach a body to each one of your requests. And so which one of these forms of requests would you attach your body to? Would it be the GET? Would it be the POST? Can you even do it for a GET? And if you know how to do all of this, it makes, like, typically you have a server programmer at the job, and then you are building out the iOS client. If you don't know how to implement all of these requests properly, it makes it very difficult for the server guy to know how you're going to interact with his server code. So definitely try to learn that as best as you can. Okay, started learning Node.js recently, very interesting. Able to understand client side better than before. Yeah, totally. Once you understand how a server works, you're going to understand how your client should be built out way more. Server, but have you ever seen an error when you use 3 collection views? I don't know why style function just recognize 2 collection views, but yeah, I don't know what's going on there. What are your thoughts on Make School Bootcamp? I got accepted, wondering if it's enough to prepare for a first job opportunity. So some of the students at Make School got in contact with me, and then the head of Make School, they kind of contacted me as well, and we're talking about collaborating somehow, me and Make School. I don't really know what's going to come out of that collaboration, or if anything's going to come out of it at all. But I think what they're doing is pretty decent. They take 25%, was it 20% of your first job salary for 3 years? I think that's, or is it only just for 1 year? Maybe it was just for 1 year. And yeah, it's a good trade-off. I mean, you learn a lot at Make School. I don't know what their curriculum is exactly, but it could be a good investment. I don't know if it's enough to prepare you for your first job opportunity. Yeah. So, yeah, it's something that you have to decide, Sean. So what are some considerations to optimize performance of the app? Choosing data collections carefully, using closure protocol, and other advanced features. So I just got this other question very similar to this earlier today. And then we were talking about structs versus classes. And then we got into the discussion of whether or not, memory management is all that important. And so if you're building out your application for the very first time, don't worry about the performance of the app. It makes no difference to you. If you're working on something that's significantly larger, then performance is important. But even then, it's the iPhone is really, really fast right now. How much more performant can you become? Obviously, don't run n square loops in your program, and I think you should be okay. My problem right now is planning ERD for data. I don't really know what ERD is. Is Swift a larger or harder language rather than others? Is Swift a harder language compared to others? Is Swift all that hard? I don't know. That's a hard question to answer. For me, I came into Swift after programming for 7-8 years. So I don't know, it depends on your experience really. If you know how to program already, Swift is not hard at all. If you don't know how to program, let's try to come at this with that angle. If you don't know how to program, Swift might seem a little hard, and every other language is going to seem pretty hard. I think out of all the modern languages that are available, Swift can seem to be one of the easier ones to learn if you don't know how to program. Interesting you mentioned Make School. My brother is there now and he's learning quite a bit. He's almost done with it. Yeah, let us know how his studies turn out and how easy or how his job search goes. Just joined. Will you put answer to TableViewer's UI or collection view somewhere? Let's see. Can I put this somewhere? Are you guys interested in getting the source code for this? I guess I'll provide this in the description once I'm done with the stream today. And then I'll just link to somewhere where you can download it. Fawaz, I love you, brother. I think it's called Product Academy. Oh yeah, they have the product side of things. So yeah, Make School sounds, I mean, they offer a lot of different styles of curriculum that you can follow. They also have that online school that's free, I think, that you can take. So based on what my brother has told me about Make School, the 1-year program is the one that prepares you for the real stuff. Yeah. Please make a newsfeed using Firebase with complex filter with categories, collection date, or location, date, Firebase push notification when someone likes the post. Yeah, this sounds like someone's homework assignment. It's always pretty funny when someone like tells you to do this one thing, right? And then you read on and it's like 10 other things. Yeah, that's kind of strange, but that's how the internet works. What was C used for before the internet? So, things like punch cards where you have to write some kind of program to calculate how many hours your employees are working. I mean, that was something that existed way before the internet. All right, we have Zhao Fei Hong. Have you ever worked with MongoDB for Swift? Swift, MongoDB, haven't really done that. I've used so MongoDB, I worked for Google Golang. I used MongoDB with. For the most part, I found MongoDB to be too strange. I didn't like the NoSQL approach to all this stuff. I ended up querying for a lot of things that I wanted to figure out relationships, what the object relating to that other object, like how do I query for this stuff? And it felt like I was just doing too much work to figure out the proper query to everything that I needed. I think, yeah, I just didn't know how to use MongoDB well enough to make it efficient for me. And if I go back and work with MongoDB and NoSQL again, I definitely will be much better at it. Make school just really expensive. Yeah, if you get a job that pays you $100K out in the Bay Area, you're gonna end up paying like $30,000, which, if you think about it, is a good trade-off. So, all right, Alex Eagle, what camera do you use? Model? I use a GH4. Currently has a 18 or 12 to 35 millimeter lens with an aperture of f2.8, continuous throughout the entire zoom range. Congrats on 17,462 subscribers. You're growing pretty fast. So lately I've noticed that the channel has gotten a lot of additional subscribers, and it feels like we have grown quite a bit from the very first days of the channel. I think, so we started this channel in January 2016. I think it was January 22nd or so. And so back then when I had this channel up, it was mostly something that I wanted to experiment with, right? And then the very first video was on how to create this UICollectionView programmatically. And if you go watch that video right now, it's really slow, and obviously the very first time you record your videos, you just don't know how to do it correctly. And even now, I'm just winging it, trying to figure out as I go along. And during those days, trying to figure out how to put up these videos so that they made sense, and trying not to make them too long was the hardest challenge at the time. And right now you can kind of see the progression of each series. Most of the videos are capped at about 20 minutes. And I think that works out better for everyone. And it makes it easier to edit, record, and plan out for the lessons. I think in the YouTube series, a lot of those videos that ended up being more than 30 minutes long, those videos had too much per video, probably. Maybe you guys can tell me if you guys want more per video. But those videos that were 35 minutes long, I felt like, I mean, for me to record a 20-minute video versus a 35-minute video, I don't think it's that much harder. But the thing is that you lose your audience really, really quickly if they can't follow along throughout the entire video. And so those are the things that I think about constantly. I mean, if I could, recording a 1 hour long video for me is not even that much harder, because I pretty much know exactly what I need to program out. but it's hard to follow all that stuff if you can't. It's like you're at a lecture, right? You're watching your professor give you all this knowledge, and halfway through, you're probably like, you can't pay attention anymore because there's just way too much stuff going through your head. But yeah, that's how I feel about these videos. Trying to not make them too long. Okay, diagram for database structuring of the data. Maybe that's definitely something that's interesting. It's hard to build out Apple Master Detail Controller template programmatically. The included one is built on the storyboard. No, not. This is pretty easy. You just specify the master controller and then you specify the detail controller. It's not that hard. I guess when I say it's not that hard, it means that I've done it too often to even think about the difficulty anymore. Yeah. Wow, you know Chinese? Yeah. 赵飞鸿 yeah 会讲的啦。因为以前有在学这个中文嘛，所以也会讲。但是现在发现我自己好像没有以前讲的好啦。All right, so PubNub API integration with Swift tutorial. Please make. Yeah, PubNub is interesting. So this is for like real-time communication with your applications. The only problem with PubNub is that it's extremely expensive. I'm a student and I don't know in what way I should go. Do you advise me to learn web developing or mobile development? The only thing I can say about this is that you have to decide on what interests you the most. The problem when someone asks you, should I learn how to use Java, right? This is just such a generic question, and the problem with that question is like, why the hell are you learning programming in the first place? If you don't have a specific goal as to what do you want to do with the program, then I don't suggest you learn how to program at all. Yep, January of 2016. Okay, have you heard about alternate icons for apps in iOS 10.3? In addition to alternate icons, you have alternate the title name for your app as well. So you can your app can be called multiple things now, which is interesting. And you can use multiple icons for your application. I think, for example, on the extension screen, your app might appear differently with a different size icon, perhaps a different different style altogether. This is bringing you enough income to replace your full-time job, or it's more like a long-term do what you kind of love or do what you love kind of thing. There's definitely a balance for income versus what you want to do later down the road. I currently, so the income that this channel brings is definitely not what you would call sustainable. And to replace my full-time job, YouTube has to provide a lot of income for me, obviously, because being paid as an iOS engineer, you just get paid. I think you get paid too much, which is a good thing, I guess. And the thing is, when you work as a full-time employee, your ceiling for how much money you make, your salary ceiling, right? It's pretty much capped at about, for iOS developers, like $150,000, $180,000. That's kind of the cap. My hope is for this channel to grow enough to the point where I don't have to worry about what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I think a lot of us, we sort of want this with this financial freedom. Financial freedom is a nice idea. Getting there is difficult. And my attempt is to use the YouTube channel to, I guess one is to gain financial freedom. And secondly is to do something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. Doing this YouTube thing, figuring out how to market yourself, build out your own brand. I think I mentioned this in the other video. These are all the things that I've wanted to try out. And so far it's seemed like it's been a good attempt at doing all this. I see it as somewhat of a success. The subscriber count is something that I look at every day. seeing the channel grow every day is what makes me motivated to produce more and more videos. I've noticed, so the most important thing about YouTube is that consistency with the amount of content that you push out really drives your channel in terms of the growth. If you're consistent with producing videos every day, having them released at a certain time of the day so that your audience knows when your videos are coming out, and then producing a variety of content for your channel, doing all of this consistently will grow your user base, subscribers, people that are interested in your channel. And that's what helps you grow. YouTube itself is sort of like an entrepreneurial adventure that you don't exactly know where it's going to go until it gets there. And then once you get to your destination point, you have to figure out which way do I go now. And the thing about the YouTube thing is that if you don't have enough like savings, you don't have the money to support yourself financially, then it's super difficult. And then I know a lot of people that kind of move back home, or a lot of the YouTubers, they temporarily move back home to produce the videos, and they also produce it on the side along with their full-time jobs. And once they get a big enough following, they can do this full-time. But doing YouTube full-time is harder than a full-time job. But it comes with a lot of different challenging moments that otherwise you won't face. And I think it's... so here's my thing on YouTube is that everyone should give it a try. Everyone should give YouTube a try. And the most important thing about YouTube is that if you can build your channel to into a big enough platform, that channel belongs to you forever. No one can take that channel away from you. Yeah, I guess that's all I'm going to say about that. I think 20 minutes long video is the right time to stop the video. Yeah, I do agree with that. Next tutorial on Chinese, maybe. 你的妈妈忙吗？你的爸爸忙吗？我妈她呀，因为她还没退休，所以现在还在上班，所以算忙吧。Okay. Could you suggest alternative to parse except for Firebase or relational DB? I don't know, Mongo, some kind of NoSQL DB. Will you ever have the subscribers submit their app to you and you do a quick review on it like Jared Davidson? Submit their app. Is this an app store submission that he reviews? Not really sure what they submit to them or submit to Jared exactly. It is more of a code review thing. It might be interesting because, so the channel, I think, so this channel, obviously for a lot of you guys that have been watching this stuff, most of what I try to bring to you guys is like extremely important coding concepts. And I try to do that as much as I can. Reviewing an app is definitely an interesting thing to attempt. Yeah, so we'll see. Maybe if I hit like 50K, I'll start doing app reviews. Could you suggest alternative parse? Yeah, I think I've answered that. I learned as many languages. Yep. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. Great to hear my story. Max salary for iOS developer in Bay Area. I mean, you can probably make like $200,000 if you're good. The thing is that if you're a good enough iOS developer, you can find contract gigs that pay a lot. Perhaps you can make $150 an hour, which equates to about $300,000 a year. And if you can eventually get there, I say go for it. And that's kind of the dream for all of us. Am I Hmong? No, I am not. So my background is I guess my parents come from Vietnam, but we're Chinese, so I always say Vietnamese Chinese, or Chinese Vietnamese, one of those. Hey Patrick, are you speaking Mandarin or Cantonese? So I've so that was Mandarin. Yeah. So the thing about Mandarin and Cantonese is that not a lot of people understand Canton. Well, the ratios. Here's how the ratio works. If you understand Cantonese, you can, for the most part, understand Mandarin. So if you want to communicate to a wider audience, you would speak in Mandarin. But the thing is, as you guys probably know about languages, if you know the niche language, you can communicate with the niche group a lot easier, or that language resonates with them more. So if I'm speaking to like a Hong Kongese audience, I would probably speak in Cantonese instead. But obviously, I don't speak Mandarin or Cantonese well enough to do something, prolific. Learn as many languages as I can, but finally I would choose the best, continue working on it. This is my answer for you. Do you advise me to learn mobile development? Just learn whatever you want to learn. Don't take anyone else's advice on what you should learn. I don't think it makes any sense. Thank you so much for all your YouTube value. Excellent tutorials. Yep. We'd like to make some tutorial about IG List Kit. So IG List Kit, I suggest everyone to look at IG List Kit. A lot of the same concepts that I use for the data source controller. The approach is the same. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but it tackles the same issues where you don't want to create these cell identifiers using a string. You don't want to render everything out and register all your cells. And we both, in Instagram, IG List Kit, it's not a common, it's a pretty common thing to tackle these problems if you're doing things in a large company. Do you use any books to help you learn iOS? Nope, I did not use any books. I see DevSlopes just came out with iOS 10 Swiftbook. That's supposedly very comprehensive. Yeah, DevSlopes seems like a bunch of good guys. Do you have any recommendations or advice? I don't really know enough about these books to give them an honest review. I think whatever you find that is helpful for you, and whatever source that is teaching you the proper ways of programming, something that resonates with how you learn, just buy their books. It's all about what resonates with you the most. For example, my channel doesn't resonate with a lot of people that like to use storyboards for building out their apps. And that's understandable. I can't appeal to everyone that's out there. I can only appeal to people that think similarly to how I think, and the people that want to build out nice looking applications. That's what this channel has to offer. I don't go beyond that, and I try not to. Oh. So the battery is out. Let me see if I can fix the battery. Alright, so let's see how much longer I can cast the stream for. And are we back? Battery is gone. Let's see, how is the focus on this guy? I think the focus looks like that. So this is what you have to go through in order to live stream. And I think we're back. So some of you guys that are looking to get into YouTube and streaming, recording videos, getting the audio with the lapel working along with a recorder. This is what gets the sound into your computer. Definitely a lot of different things that you have to buy in terms of equipment so that you can have good recording, video, audio, streaming, internet that supports your stream. All this is pretty important. Battery is blinking red. Yeah. So I wasn't aware of that because I really wish I can show you guys my recording setup. Maybe I'll do that sometimes or sometime. All right, so we have this from Roy Lin. 你是台湾人吗？希望你可以用中文稍微讲解 Core 中文教学好少，英文不好，很难学。See if I want to respond to this in Chinese. Mr. 林先生，我不是台湾人，我爸妈呢是从越南过来的。然后我就是加州出生长大的，用中文来就是解释怎么去用 Core Data，还有就是其他的吧。我觉得就是在网上很难找到就是很有用的 documentation 吧，所以就是我有想过就是要中文来教学怎么去写 program 啦，可是因为中文水平并不是那么好，所以要录这样的一个短片呢，比较有难度了。Alright, battery is gone. Any SQL injections in iOS? For the most part, no. You're not doing any SQL types of operations inside of your iOS app. Most of your SQL operations occur on the server side, which is good. You want to make sure your client and your server are separated enough so that you don't mess things up in the wrong place. Would you like make some tutorial about voice over IP apps like Viper? Perhaps in the future. You should post another tutorial like Kindle app paid on your site, maybe higher complexity for another $20 maybe. I bet people would buy it. Yeah, so that's not exactly in the works right now, but I'm trying to release something else that people are interested in buying. Yeah. Missed this Sunday? Well, you're here, so you haven't missed it completely. Do Chinese iOS developers write code in English or Chinese? So the same thing is true about every other country that writes code. You have to write things in English. There is no compiler that compiles Chinese or what is the Indian language called? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not versed enough. So like Japanese, right? You can't write programs in Japanese. It doesn't compile. Yeah. Have you ever worked with Google, Facebook, Twitter? I mean, tech giants. So no, I haven't worked at any big company like that. If someday you respond to French guy in French, I'll be shocked. Yeah, I'll also be shocked if I ever do that. Do you know machine learning have you implemented to iOS? No, I really haven't done much machine learning. I'm working on a project from our university. You know the Marauder's map from Harry Potter. Is it possible? And how would you suggest me? So I don't know Harry Potter too much. I actually don't read a lot, so not very, very much of a Harry Potter thing. I remember this language that let you write code in Chinese. That'd be interesting. Yeah. That'll be very interesting if you can compile your code in Chinese, but it seems like an impossible thing right now. Answer in Spanish. So I took Spanish in high school, which means that I don't know any Spanish other than like ¿Dónde está la biblioteca? That's what everyone in America knows, right? Very first sentence you learn is where is the library, which comes in handy never. Okay. Okay, so Sebastian is back. We have Michael. Yeah. So let's see. Let's see. Is there anything else that I want to talk to you guys about? I think we're going to wrap it up today here, seeing as Super Bowl is going on. For some of you guys that want to watch the Super Bowl, we're going to end it. Hopefully today's yeah. Hopefully today's stream has been helpful for you guys, and hopefully you guys found this stuff helpful. What's the next series after Twitter? Is it going to be Spotify? I don't know really. Let's see. Will my Spotify app load? What is this? There's the Kindle one. Spotify, are you here? Spotify demo. I don't even know if the images will load. So here's what the Spotify app looks like. Perhaps I'll drag this over here. This is better. Yeah, it looks like that. So what's nice is that there's this blur at the very top, which is not how you would do things typically, but that's how Spotify works. So this is an interesting way to implement it. So I noticed that the last time I showed this on a video, I got a few interesting comments saying that they thought that this was the Spotify app on the phone itself. They thought that this was the actual app, but this is something that took me about I don't know, like 5 days to build out. And you see how everything has these nice blurs, right? And then everything has this nice horizontal scroll. And like I was saying in the beginning of this video, the horizontal scroll comes from a UICollectionView, and this is just a simple, so inside of this is a data source controller. And that's kind of how this works. And then you click on one of these tabs, I guess, that loads the same thing. Click on that. You get this functionality where, you drag the play button and it stops at the very top. And everything underneath it scrolls up. So this is something that's really hard to explain how to do. And if I get the audio working here, I might be able to release this as a separate tutorial series. I haven't really gotten far enough to decide where I want to take this thing. And then we have this shuffle play button, and if you click on another screen, you get this right here. So something that's interesting about this app is that, let's see if we want to load up something else, perhaps this red guy. The image back here is a blurred image for whatever this thing is. So basically you just blur this out, or you blur this image and then you load it behind it. And for the most part, like you see, you can't really tell that it's being cut off at the very bottom, and that's because there's a gradient being applied at the very bottom. So that's why you can't really tell. If you look at this, it kind of looks like that. There's a little slight gradient that makes it blend into the back. And so that's what that looks like. What else is there that I can show you guys? I guess this Twitter app thing, can I even do this? I think my phone is, my connection while streaming is just too slow to even show you guys this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I have good questions out here. So thank you everyone for following today's live stream, and thank you to the folks that donated today via this send super chat option that YouTube is experimenting with. Yeah, just it's really motivating when people are donating, supporting, and just watching the videos in general. And we'll see what else we have going for February, which is already we're already on the 5th of February. Every day is very important. Everything that you do from Monday to Friday, and then you think you can take a break on Saturday and Sunday. But the hardest thing about working on YouTube is that there is no day that you can really take a break. You try to avoid burnout, but what happens is that you don't provide enough video recordings, and sometimes if you try to rush things out, if you don't prepare enough for the entire week, you don't record the best content that you can. So it's always good to have a bit of a buffer of videos that you've already recorded. It makes it for an enjoyable channel. So that's the last thing I'm going to say for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoy whatever you do for the rest of today. Perhaps watch a Super Bowl. I'm probably going to take a breather and walk outside for a little bit and just try to enjoy the sun. Yeah, so that's it. Enjoy your day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye, guys.